Hey YouTube, this is Alexander and I'm back with another tech video. In this tech video I'm going to be doing sort of a different video comparing the pros and cons of iOS with the pros and cons of Android, so let's get started. Okay, so I just want to preface this quickly by saying this is not meant to be a fanboy rant or anything like this. I'm trying to do this from objective, somewhat consumer, somewhat Nexus owner. And if you have a comment, just be sure to leave those down in the description and try not to, spark any fanboy. Leave that stuff at home and just bring your objective, constructive criticism or whatever you have, your opinions. We'll start off with the pros of iOS. Pros include update security, which can also be a con, ease of use, which can also be a con, well-known and a strong user base. We'll start off with the updates. When you buy an iOS device, whether it's an unlocked device and you take it to a GSM carrier, that carrier usually will, at least with Android, sort of dictates when the update is going to hit your device. But when you buy an Apple device, it's much different. Apple controls when you're going to get that update. So if you buy your iPhone on Big Red here in the States and you buy your iPhone unlocked and you just either have it lying around or you're using it with T-Mobile, you are going to get the update as long as you have the same phone at the same time. There's no carrier saying that you're going to get that update. Security, which can be a pro and a con at the same time, and I'll explain a little bit why, is because everybody sees, or at least I don't want to say everybody, a lot of people see, especially maybe the average consumer, as iOS being a really secure operating system, which I don't want to say it isn't, but because of its larger app store, there is room for more bad apps and apps that will misuse your data. So as always with Android, iOS, Windows Phone, if any of you use that, or BlackBerry, just be cautious of the permissions that they present to you, which is something Android is really clear about when you download an app. Is here are the permissions and here is what they say they need, and just make sure you look at the reviews and the ratings before installing an app. The next one, which I mentioned, is ease of use. That can be a pro and a con if you're somebody like me. If you're somebody who is maybe getting a first-time smartphone, you haven't used a smartphone before, you've used an iPod and you like how that works, ease of use is probably going to be a good thing. You pretty much plug it into iTunes or do it on your iPhone. Is right when you turn it on and you sign in and everything, it's ready to go, you have everything right there. I feel like with Android it might be a little bit more complicated for the average user, at least that's what I've heard. Could be just trolls or whatever. iOS kind of has a reputation for being easy to use. You turn it on, you go, and it's ready. Your settings right there, you got your app store, you got everything right there. And Android isn't any different. It's not like it hides stuff, but it just feels like there's this reputation Android has for being a little bit harder to use, which I'm not exactly on board with. Another pro of iOS is it's well known, which brings me to marketing as well. Well known means that Apple has at least somewhat of a good strategy of marketing things. When you look at a commercial for an iPhone, you're looking at it for an iPhone or an iPod Touch or iPad, but you see that commercial and you instantly know what it's for and how to use it most of the time. It's not like an Android commercial, and I'm not trying to knock Android or their commercials for any of their devices, but it's just, you look at the commercial and you know it's an iPhone. You can picture how to use it. Most consumers can picture how to use it, what it is. They've heard of it, Some Android phones, it can be a little bit different in the marketing area because you have an HTC One here that's being marketed by HTC, then you have a Galaxy S4 or Galaxy S3 here being marketed by Samsung. And when a consumer sees those, they might see two different devices on two entirely different ecosystems or platforms, if you will, when in reality they're both running Android and they just have a skin. And it's not like it's really bad to the point, Android can't sell phones or anything like that, but it's just because they do have different OEMs to work with, the commercials and the marketing is going to be a little bit different for each OEM. This OEM might not have such a good marketing strategy, and this one may have a really good marketing strategy, which is going to make everybody flock to that Android phone, or at least the masses. And so that's kind of why iOS has that pro, is that it's well known because of its marketing. Now a huge con, I feel like the biggest of iOS, is that it's boring. It is stale. iOS has pretty much been the same, plus a few features, and I know you guys might not like that I say that, but if you look at it, the core of it, swiping through, you have your app drawer basically on the screen, you open an app, it does that whoosh transition, and you're ready to go. And you might call that simplicity, or you might call that boring. but the same thing over and over with a couple additions like wallpapers, better camera, HDR. It sort of just kind of eats at you if you're a person like me who wants, updates. You want to learn new things of the OS. You want a huge package of new. You don't want a small package of new, basically, I guess is what I'm saying. And with Android, I feel like you can get that large package. Comments down below. When upgrading, because Android has this thing of, every major, aside from Jelly Bean 4.1 to 4.2, which was sort of minor and added mostly under the hood things with a couple outside, but they have a pretty good reputation for adding a lot of new things, bringing new interface, new look, and it just feels like, Android has a new look every major version, and every major version of iOS, not so much. Pros of Android are integration. Because Android is open, they let developers plug in to their apps and stuff. So when you want to share a photo on iOS, for example, you have the options of, well, there's I believe maybe 5 or 6 options. On Android, when you want to share a photo, there are a ton of options depending on what apps you have installed. Let's say you got a messaging app, you have another messaging app, you have Falcon Pro, you have all these different apps. You can choose which ones you want to share with, and Apple doesn't really allow that. Android, I feel like, is fun and enjoyable. You turn it on, it may be a little bit, for some people, like I said, complex to turn it on and sign in and everything. But for the most part, it's fun and enjoyable. They put new features, like I said. Major versions come with major updates. They don't, I guess, sort of slack like I feel Apple is doing lately, or since the beginning, if you want to say. Little Easter eggs, which I know have no usability. They're just fun. But I feel like they kind of have a little reputation for being a fun OS that adds features. Some of the cons of Android, which I already mentioned one of them, which would be kind of like the marketing. It's just kind of hard for Android to be marketed as a whole OS because they have a lot of different OEMs, which is good and bad. They have OEMs which are allowed to build on that and add features to stock Android, which in my opinion, I will admit, even though I love stock Android, it doesn't have the huge feature set like TouchWiz does, for example, the eyeball scrolling, the tilt to zoom or whatever. Whether you want to say that's functional or it's even usable, like for every day, is up to you, but that is a feature that's added. And because Android kind of got a rocky start, I guess, with a lot of people and being slow, laggy, jittery, whatever you want to say, some people now kind of feel like they don't want to really go back to Android, or the comments sometimes reflect when a person has used Android before and they kind of got a sour taste of it because of its early beginnings. But Android is smooth as Project Butter now. That's really sort of a con in that some people think that it's still the way it was back in 2010, when in reality it's not. It's 3 years later. They're really smooth. And the last con I want to talk about is updates. Android, because I mentioned with marketing, they have so many different OEMs working with them to build on top of Android. The update schedule is all over the place. It's not like an iPhone. They announce it, it's supposed to come out, and for the most part it does. They have carrier involvement, they have OEM involvement, and then just the core Android involvement, which if you have a Nexus phone, you know that there's no problem there, at least if it's on a GSM network. Now, if you have a Galaxy S4 or Galaxy S3, or you have even an older device that wasn't really popular, but it could still be relevant because you have a contract, it might not get an update, which is unfortunate that that's how it works. But OEMs want to update those really popular devices, and sometimes I feel like they leave out those older devices, and I've been an owner of one of those devices, so I'm speaking from experience, which is unfortunate. But as long as you have a Nexus device, which I guess would be, I like to say, the anti-iPhone, you get the updates right when they're supposed to be given. Now, for example, in the Galaxy Nexus situation, if you bought it on Verizon here in the States, then you're going to get those updates later, because one, it's not, I don't believe it was it didn't have like official, I think it's called AOSP support. If I'm wrong, you can let me know. And plus, Verizon had to approve the update, which feels like it took forever, whereas Sprint was a little bit faster, and Google, the servers, they were on it right away. There was no carrier for them to have to go through, no middleman. They just sent the update over the air and everybody got it. So I feel like that's one con of Android, is the update schedule. So that was my video of pros and cons of Android and iOS. Don't hate me if I said something that you didn't like or that you disagreed with. Just go ahead and leave a comment. I'll try to reply if, we get fanboy wars. Just, I don't want to encourage that. But anyway, that was it. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to give a like, subscribe, I think it's down there, and stay tuned for my giveaway. I think I'm like 2 away from 500, so if you can share this video, maybe somebody you know who's debating which one to get or whatever, maybe this will help them, and it'll help me and help you guys to win this right here. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.